Hey everyone, this is the June 2021 meeting of the Southern Oregon Woodard Group. I'm Ingrid Edstrom and I'm here with my co-host Sharday Eisenhower. And we have a fantastic app demo for everyone today. We have Shayna and James here from PlateIQ. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yay,
Thank
and you're
you.
both on the East Coast, so thanks
Yeah.
for coming all the way out to Oregon via Zoom to do this demo today.
Their pleasure. Thanks for having us, guys.
Yay. So you mentioned that the demo is going to be, probably almost an hour, depending on how many questions and things our members have. So I'm going to go ahead and let you dive right in. And then once you guys finish up, then we can kind of continue, chit-chatting in the meeting and such like that without you. So those who are watching the replay of this and are just looking for the demo, you can go ahead and dive in. Let me make sure I've got screen share enabled. Yes, so you should be able to share your screen. And Sharday and I are going to turn off our videos so that our smiling faces are not in the way of the screen share.
Sure. Well, thanks again, guys, for the warm welcome. And hi, everyone. So what I'll do today to get started is we'll basically cover a super high level overview of PlateIQ, kind of just give you guys a 30,000 foot level overview of what we do. And then we'll jump right into our core competency. I want to show you guys exactly what we're doing to these invoices. And then we'll walk through a formal workflow piece, touch on our bill pay module, and also our spend management module as well. So at a super high level, we specialize in accounts payable automation. And what that really means is that we completely eliminate the manual data entry in the invoice and AP process. And the way we're able to accomplish this is by digitizing invoices line by line, starting with the header information, converting the entire invoice into digital text utilizing optical character recognition, otherwise known as OCR for short. It's the same exact type of technology that you may even use in your personal life. If you've ever deposited, let's say, a personal check into your personal bank account, that's the financial services or banking version of OCR, whereas, let's say, Google Translate has a version where you can actually take photos, let's say, of languages or sentences or signs. Let's say if we ever go back to traveling overseas again, you can actually snap a photo of it, and Google Translate will transcribe that language to the language of your choice. So there's several different types of OCR engines on the marketplace. Our OCR is specifically designed for invoice capture, for bill capture, receipt capture. So starting with the header information, the entire invoice is transcribed into digital text utilizing OCR, and then it's passed to our second piece of technology. Now that's our artificial intelligence machine learning interface. Now, simply put, think of this as your personal digital assistant, or maybe an entry-level bookkeeper, if you will, in the sense that just like you would teach a new hire, let's say if you were to bring on some bookkeeping staff to help with the invoices, or in the accounting department, you told them, hey, anytime you come across this invoice and you come across, let's say, a line item that says, let's say tomatoes as an example, tomatoes is mapped to our food cost. Or let's say you come across another item or invoice and you see towels. Towels is associated to our supply costs, something like that. Except with our system, you're going to teach it one time. The next time that invoice comes in, let's say the 5th time, the 500th, or the 5,000th time, because you've taught it once, it'll be completely digitized, uploaded to the cloud, map coded, and then gets ready for review and approval into your accounting software. Now, the third piece is what is the real differentiator here between us and any other competitor in the marketplace, is that OCR is not 100% accurate, right? Google and Amazon, the biggest tech giants on planet Earth, do not have 100% accurate OCR. So what we like to say is everyone who ever says that, they're basically living in the future. What we're looking to do to combat that and provide the highest level of data integrity, and we have a 99.5% accuracy rating, because on top of the OCR and on top of the AI, we have a human enrichment piece. There's 400 data scientists that are actually combing through these invoices and parsing through these invoices in real time for accuracy. Now, our roots are within the hospitality industry. And one of the specific nuances for that business is receiving, let's say, an invoice that has, maybe it's a handwritten invoice from, let's say, a local vendor down the street. Or maybe it's a hand-edited invoice. Maybe the goods were arrived on premises and maybe something wasn't received, or maybe it was spoiled. So the receiver actually crosses it out, right? Now, our OCR is robust enough to understand a handwritten or hand-edited invoice, but let's just say, for instance, if you do receive an invoice that has terrible handwriting, or maybe there's blurry image, Maybe there's coffee stains all over it. Whatever the case may be, it's going to be automatically flagged, brought to a data scientist for verification. And if we can't make heads or tails of it, it'll be rejected, then pushed back to the user who uploaded it. So that's a super, super high level overview. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to jump right into our core competency here. So just want to pop into our secondary screen here. So jumping right in here, guys, this is our core competency, right? This is the magic behind the platform. We have a split screen. To the left-hand side is the original copy of this invoice. Now, there's 5 different ways you can get invoices into PlateIQ. We can cover the upload process in just a second. However they come in, you're always going to have that original copy to the left. Now, to the right-hand side is all the work that PlateIQ has done to this invoice. So starting with the header information, the entire invoice has been transcribed into digital text, starting with our vendor name, the invoice number, location, invoice date, due date, posting date, subtotal, tax total. Now, based on this customer's chart of accounts and based on this customer's vendor list, you can notice that all the items below in black have been automatically mapped and coded. Now, this occurs during the onboarding and implementation phase when we sync with your accounting software and bring over your chart of accounts or your vendor list, and let's say 30 historical invoices, to actually begin teaching the system, priming the system to get it cooking, to understand your GL coding patterns, so that the next time you upload an invoice to the platform, you'll see the finished product to the right in black. Now, stepping ahead a bit, I wanted to cover both the OCR and the AI component here in the technology. The first part is the OCR has gone in, it's intelligently extracted this invoice data, converted into digital text to the right-hand side. So that's step 1. Step 2 is the AI machine learning element, right? So we're teaching the system one time where these items are to be associated. Now, I jumped into what we call a needs attention invoice to illustrate this. Needs attention, well, why? Because this invoice contains 2 unmapped line items we've never seen before. So this is the work that we need to do in order to teach the system one time. We're going to simply click on the dropdown. It'll highlight that item to bring it to the user's attention. The entire chart of accounts is below, so they can scroll down for it. They can search for it in the little search bar. If they knew it was a liquor cost, or let's say if they knew it was a specific GL code. But over time, PlateIQ starts to learn your GL coding patterns because you are teaching it. So it becomes smarter and smarter over time and starts to float a few GLs under suggested to the top. It never makes a decision for you, but it will help you out by just providing a few suggestions. So now we're just going to simply teach the system. Let's just call it a liquor cost as an example. So now we're going to teach the system. Going forward, we want to map this item to 5200-00. PlateIQ will always provide 3 options. Always automatically implies just that. But we know that this item will always and should automatically be mapped to 5200. Only this one time implies just that, right? We know that this item needs to be mapped to 5200 today. It may change tomorrow. Always manual implies that we know that this item is consistently changing. It may go to 5200 today, and it's going to go to another GL code tomorrow. But in this specific example, we know that this item is going to always be automatically mapped to 5200. So once I press confirm, the next time this item comes in, or the next time the invoice comes in, it's going to bypass your needs attention bucket. It'll get ready for review and approval. Now that's conceptually our technology down at our core competency. I want to take a step back and show you exactly the way the invoice process looks from start to finish. So once you've logged into using your PlateIQ credentials, this will be your main screen. This is the dashboard. When you first log in, it'll say welcome to PlateIQ James or welcome to PlateIQ the user. Now we wanted to make sure that the user interface was very user friendly because we have a lot of different personnel groups that utilize and optimize PlateIQ. Everyone from the ownership team to, let's say, the C-suite, the operations team, the accounting team, let's say the food and beverage team. So we have multiple teams. We want to make sure that everyone can quickly access all the relevant information that pertains to them. This happens to be an admin account. Admins are super users. They can do everything within PlateIQ. Every single functionality that PlateIQ has to offer, as an admin, you're also having that ability as well. But with our system, you're also able to have unlimited users as part of your subscription, no extra cost. By having unlimited users, you're able to dictate to each individual user what their functionality or what their role is within PlateIQ, basically being able to identify what they can do within the system and what their limitations are. Really quickly to illustrate what that looks like, we're going to go into our settings tab. Again, as an administrator, I have these additional settings, whereas other users won't have access to these settings at all. And then they can manage their users directly from here. This happens to be a 16 location group that's based in Chicago. They have 44 users on the platform. And in the third column, we can notice that every single user has a particular role and can oversee a certain amount of locations. Well, what does that really mean? As an administrator, I'm a super user. I have every single permission that PlateIQ has to offer, and I can cover my entire portfolio. But I can also provide some type of limited options or limited access. Let's say, for instance, I wanted to provide access to, let's say, to a team member to only review or have access to 2 locations. And I want to provide them with some type of, let's say, limited access. I can provide them with a, let's say, a GM limited role where this user can manage their vendor statements, they can upload invoices, or they can approve them. Now, these are just a few options out of the box that come ready to go. We can also customize these roles by simply going into our settings tab. We're going to go into manage a role where we can actually create our role on the fly. So if, let's say, none of those roles are adequate enough for this user, I can go in and customize it. I simply assign the role, provide it to the user, and literally cherry pick their permission levels from here. The key thing is we have unlimited users as part of the subscription with PlateIQ. Now, jumping back to the dashboard, there are 5 main ways of getting these invoices into PlateIQ. We're going to click on our big blue upload button. Again, we are the admin for the entire portfolio, so we have access to the entire portfolio. If I was provided some type of limited access, let's say, for instance, my access was limited to, let's say, either 2 locations or maybe 2 companies, and those 2 companies only, when I press on the big blue upload button, I visibly will only see and have access to those 2 locations or those 2 companies. Let's say, for instance, it was even further limited to, let's say, to 1 company or 1 location. When I press on the big blue upload button, let's say that company's Bar Cargo, as an example. Once I select upload, this will be the box that appears. The first method to get these invoices into PlateIQ is our scanning method. Scanning is the fastest way to get physical paper invoices or physical receipts into the platform because you can bulk batch scan them in batches. So if you had, let's say, 10, 100, 200 invoices, basically as many as that scanner physically allows, you're going to pop it through the scanner. It creates this PDF, this JPEG image on your computer. You're going to simply take that file, drag and drop it anywhere within this box. Once you drop it down, PlateIQ is immediately going to start to digitize the invoices, but we're also parsing through those invoices, meaning, let's say, for instance, if you're on the way to the scanner and maybe you hit your elbow on the way there and maybe a couple invoices off the top hit the ground, they're out of order. Instead of having to waste your time picking those invoices up and putting them back in order, you can actually just put them through the scanner. Because we're associating all the header information, we're going to intelligently put page 3 behind page 2. The OCR is then going to convert it into digital text, map code it, and then get it ready for approval and export into your accounting software. And that's the first method. That's the scanning method. Now, the second method is what we call our location or client-specific email address, and that's located right here. So when you guys sign up, we create these unique client-specific email addresses or location-specific email addresses on our servers for each one of your clients. If the scanner has the capability of sending emails, they can simply set that scanner to your location or client-specific email address, take your stack of invoices, pop them through, we handle the rest. Any vendors that send invoices electronically today via email, you can actually provide this location or client-specific email address directly to the vendor and let them know going forward, please send all the invoices to my client-specific email address. You have to do anything in the process. Or you can have them CC'd on all incoming invoices so they simultaneously hit both your accounting inbox and PlateIQ, or simply forward it to your client-specific email address. As soon as the email arrives with the invoice attached, we're going to digitize it, map code it, and get it ready for approval and export. The third method is going to be your mobile app. The mobile app you simply download on your phone or tablet. It's compatible with both iOS and Android devices. Excellent on-the-fly method. Let's say if you're in the field, you have to, maybe you're running to the grocery store, the hardware store, maybe there's being work done on premises and they hand you an invoice. You can simply just take out your mobile device and you can snap a photo of that invoice. Instantly digitized, map coded, gets ready for approval and export. You never lose invoices or receipts going forward. The 2 last methods are what we call our vendor methods, where it's coming from the vendor. Now, the first option is what we call our EDI method. EDI stands for electronic data interchange. We have relationships with over 150 large broadliners here in the States. And essentially what this is invoice data that comes directly from the vendor. right? So it's text file for your accounting software to understand. It's also one of the fastest ways to get invoice data into your system and verified. With PlateIQ, you can have as many EDI integrations as you like. It comes with your subscription. And essentially what the workflow would look like is upon delivering in the truck with the goods, the vendor goes to their computer and sends over this EDI invoice, or which is again text file for your accounting software to understand. But the really cool thing about PlateIQ, as opposed to it coming into your system as purely text file, we're actually going to re-engineer that text file to look like an invoice. So you'll have your header information and your line-by-line detail. The fifth method is the web EDI method. Now, the web EDI method is for any vendor who requests operators to go to, let's say, a vendor portal to physically download invoices manually when they're readily available. With our web EDI method, instead of having to go to this vendor portal or to these multiple vendor portals to download invoices when they're readily available, you can actually go to our vendor connection center within PlateIQ, enter your credentials for those vendors one time, so that the next time those invoices are readily available, PlateIQ is going to automatically go fetch those invoices and push them into PlateIQ, cutting out all those steps going forward. So there are 5 main ways of getting these invoices into PlateIQ. They've been specifically designed to work in conjunction with each other to expedite the process, to make sure that these invoices are readily available to be worked on by the team. Now, once those invoices are
Really quick
up,
question, James.
yes.
I don't know if we're actually seeing what you're seeing, because right now I'm seeing a screen that says upload invoices to Bar Cargo.
Yes. So this is the upload screen for uploading invoices. This is the screen where you'll be able to handle.
Right, and that's the same thing I've been seeing for the last several minutes. So your screen hasn't been changing, and I don't know if it was supposed to be.
Oh yes. I'm verbally walking you through the 5 different methods. The last 2 are vendor enabled, so not too much to show there. But the first
Okay,
3,
great. I just wanted to make sure that we're actually seeing what we're supposed to be seeing, and it's just a verbal explanation without a visual. Perfect. Thank you.
absolutely, of course. Excellent. So now, once these invoices are uploaded to the platform, they live here in your invoices tab. I'll start with the All Documents bucket because the All Documents bucket quite literally is your hyper digital filing cabinet. The reason why we like to call it our hyper digital filing cabinet is because every single piece of the invoice has been broken down, has been transcribed into digital text. So now everything on that invoice is now easily searchable and filterable by anything on the invoice. You can search by the invoice number, the total of the invoice, the vendor name, the item name, search by a particular period of time you're looking for invoices. You can actually create your period using the calendar or look for invoices in a particular day. Search by vendor, GL, department, document type. Let's say it's a credit statement or receipt. And you notice that this customer has over 55,000 invoices that are living on our platform. Let's say, for instance, you wanted to get creative with your search and you wanted to look up all the invoices with the word avocado as an example, and you search by anything. With a couple clicks, we have 842 invoices across all vendors, all time, with the word avocado. And you can do this for anything. Let's say you wanted to do paper, chairs, napkins, whatever. The typical use case is looking for an invoice on the fly. Hey, James, where's that $2,000 Greco and Sons invoice? Right. So the first thing I would do is I'd type in my vendor name. The second thing I would request is asking, well, when did that invoice come in, roughly? Let's just say the invoice came in during June of 2019. So let's go back 2 years. Click on our calendar. We'll create our period on the fly. Now, the same exact way that I'm creating my period using my laptop, I can use on my mobile device, my tablet. So quite literally anywhere with internet connection, you're able to search for your invoices. So we know during June 2019 from Greco and Sons, we have 458 invoices. Now I can use additional filter here to my left to get more granular. I can even descend and ascend these here at the top. But if I'm just going to do a shorthand scroll down looking for 2000, I'm just going to scroll down here a bit. This is a little high. 3073 is not it. And then 2052 is pretty close. So let's pop it open. And it brings us back to how we opened our presentation today. Back to our core competency. Split screen. To the left-hand side is the original copy of this invoice. To the right-hand side is the finished product. So starting with the header information, the entire invoice has been transcribed into digital text. All the line items have been automatically mapped and coded. Now on the line item, you're able to actually split these items. Let's say if there's any type of unique accounting splitting rules that are happening internally. Let's say, for instance, if you ever had to split a line item or split an invoice, you can actually do that directly within the platform. Simply click on the line item. You can split this invoice, let's say, across multiple GL codes if you like. You can split it across departments, locations. This customer has it set up for GL codes currently, so we can simply go in here and just select the GL codes that we want to split it across. You can even change the percentages, change the quantities, split it across multiple GL codes if you like. And if you guys ever wanted to make it a rule, let's say if you ever wanted to tell the system, hey, every single time we want to split this item across these two GL codes, simply click on always split, and the next time it comes in, it'll automatically split it for you. Moving from line items, we have our account splits. Now the GL summaries that are already summarized. This is what actually gets pushed into the accounting software. Now within PlateIQ, you can actually just select these and you'll see what rolls up into each one of these here. Moving from account splits, we have our history tab. This provides the audit trail, the life cycle of the invoice. Shows who uploaded the invoice, via which method, when was it verified by our data team, if it was modified by a team member, whether that be internally or externally, who approved it, and ultimately who exported it into your accounting software. And then what we wanted to do to eliminate communication overhead, what we find is any customer who's been using, let's say, a system that's antiquated or manual. There's a lot of manual back and forth communication regarding invoices, whether it be between voicemails, text messages, emails. Maybe you're printing out an email, paper clipping it to this inquiry and sending it off to, let's say, a client or internally. We're never having a centralized depository. If you ever have to reference that communication in the future, what we wanted to do is eliminate that confusion. And right on the invoice level, you can actually flag an invoice with any team member on the fly. This is a direct communication to any team member. And let's say it was Erica who uploaded his invoice. You could directly communicate to Erica and say, hey, Erica, give me, this is the wrong price for, let's say, chicken breast, or give me a call regarding this invoice, or do not approve this invoice. Did we get shorted on this invoice? Where's the credit? Whatever the communication is. Once you press save, Erica will immediately get a push notification on her mobile devices, letting her know that this invoice has been flagged for her attention. She's also flagged within PlateIQ. When she logs on using her credentials, she's going to be forced to address this flag. Also going to be sent an email with a link, bringing them right back to this invoice, letting them know that team member has questions around this invoice, and only when Erica logs in and addresses the flag will this invoice be allowed to make its way along the AP workflow. Now with PlateIQ, we are a software as a service, but we have a huge service element to our business. So on top of the 400 data scientists that are maintaining the data accuracy of the invoices, this is a system where you don't sign up for or you figure out on your own, right? We have a dedicated account management team that's with you guys every step of the way. You have your account manager, your customer success manager that will be hand-holding you guys through the entire process. But if any member of the team has a quick question surrounding an invoice that doesn't necessarily merit a Zoom meeting or even an email, they can at our support team, and one of our data engineers will get back to them right away. Okay, great. So now on to our workflow piece. So now we have our digital filing cabinet where everything's searchable and filterable. Your workflow will always be from left to right. Workflow will start with needs attention. It moves to pending approval, and then ultimately approved or export. So think of this as a filter into your accounting software. Our first stop is our needs attention bucket. This is our exceptions queue. Most common reasons why invoices are flagged: missing information on the invoice will be automatically flagged. Missing page numbers will be automatically flagged. Duplicate invoices will be automatically flagged. Going back to our core competency, split screen, you'll have both those invoices side by side. You'll be able to go in, select the correct invoice, and delete the duplicates. You'll never have duplicate invoices within PlateIQ or your accounting software. Where you'll be spending the time within your needs attention bucket are for items we typically haven't seen before. So during the onboarding implementation phase, we use historical invoices to get the system cooking, to understand your GL coding patterns by using historical invoices. Now, post-training is when we're going to see invoices and vendors and line items that we've never seen before. So this is where, let's say, the first 2 weeks you'll be spending your time teaching the system one time where these items need to be associated. To do so, you're simply clicking to the invoice, always having the original copy of the invoice to the left-hand side, all the work that PlateIQ has done to the left, and you're simply going to teach the system one time where these items need to be associated. Let's just call this cleaning service. So now we going forward, we're going to tell the system that we're going to map this item to 5815-00 by pressing confirm. Next time this invoice comes in, it's going to bypass needs attention and get ready for review and approval. So now the invoice has been verified, it's been mapped, now it's ready for approval. So this user is utilizing what we call our two-step approval process, where invoices can be uploaded by multiple decision makers, and then they have one administrator or one reviewer who approves all the invoices. That's our two-step approval process. We also have what we call our advanced AI approvals. Now that's going to flag an invoice based on a specific feature of that invoice, and then redirect that invoice based on that feature. As an example of this, let's say, for instance, you want any invoice over $10,000 to be sent to ownership for review. So that invoice can be uploaded by any user within the organization, but once uploaded, it's going to automatically be rerouted to the owner. The owner will log in using their credentials, go to the invoices tab, go to the pending approval bucket, and see any invoice that's at the $10,000 mark or above for approval. Let's say, for instance, if you wanted to have, let's say it's a hospitality group as an example. If you wanted to have all the food invoices to be sent to, let's say, the chef for approval, same process. Any and all food invoices can be uploaded by any user, but once they're uploaded, they're going to automatically be rerouted to the chef's pending approval bucket for review. Now, you can set these up however you like. And to give you a really sneak peek into what that looks like, we're going to go into our settings tab here. Again, we're going to go into our administrative settings, and we're going to go into our approval policies. Now, just like our users, where you have unlimited users as part of your subscription, you also have unlimited approval policies. So there's no limit to the types of policies that you can create or any type of condition, and you can create as many as you like. So let's create one. Let's just call this one, we can call it food invoices. You can select your location, your group or company. Let's select a location. Let's go into this location, and we can select a few vendors here. So let's select this vendor. We can select this vendor. Again, there's no limitations here, just to give you reference. And then, of course, you can create any type of condition. Now, let's say that total less than, let's say, $500 as an example. So this condition for this policy is for this location, we have 2 food vendors that, as long as they're under the total less than $500, the potential approvers for this condition, let's say, is Ashley. And Ashley, if she doesn't approve this invoice within the 5-day period, it automatically gets escalated to Ashley's direct report. Let's say you wanted to have Ashley or, let's see, Barris to approve these invoices. It's the same concept. And again, there's no limitation here. I'm just putting 5 days for 5 business days, but you can change this however you like. We can say if Ashley or Barris do not approve these invoices within 5 days, they automatically get escalated to their direct reports. You can also have Barris and Ashley approving these invoices. And then we can also have the hierarchy, going back to the $10,000 invoice. Let's say the hierarchy is Ashley receives the invoice and approves it first. After Ashley approves the invoice, it goes to Barris for secondary approval. And only after Ashley and Barris have approved both that invoice, now it's ready for, let's say, ownership to do final review and approval. So you can set these up as complex as you like, just like this user, or you can set it up as basic as you like, just like this user, with a 2-step approval policy. The same way of approving invoices is consistent. You log on user credentials, you go into your invoices tab, go to the pending approval bucket, and you see all the invoices that need your approval. And you simply go in and start approving invoices, always having the original copies of these invoices to the left, finished product to the right, so you can visually have eyes on your invoice and you can approve one by one. You can also approve on your mobile device. So you'll be pinged saying, hey, you have invoices for your approval. You'll have a copy of this invoice. Once you select this invoice within the PlateIQ app, you'll be able to swipe left or swipe right to approve or disapprove in real time and adding notes. So again, anywhere with internet, you're able to review and approve these invoices. And of course, you can actually select a few of these invoices to get approved as well. And depending on your permission level, again, admins have this permission level built into the system, they can also bulk approve. Now that will be dependent on the admin. Admins have full control on who have this permissions. So now the invoice has been verified, it's been mapped, now it's ready for export. So the approved bucket is your export queue. The approved bucket is typically reserved for a member of the accounting team. A member of the accounting team is able to go in and see all the invoices that have been ready for approval by the team members, and they can do one last look before actually exporting these invoices into your accounting software. Same methodology, they'll click in, always having the original copy of the invoice to the left, the finished product to the right. You can export into the accounting system one by one by having physical eyes on the invoice and being able to export it. And then, of course, you can also export from your mobile device by simply going to the PlateIQ app. You'll be able to swipe left or swipe right to export or reject that invoice with notes. And finally, as we get ready to export, we can select a few of these invoices to be exported into our accounting software. Or we notice that we have 56 invoices that have been ready to be exported. We can actually bulk export them in batches. So all 56 invoices will be now exported in your accounting software, eliminating the manual data entry into your system. Up next is our statement reconciliation module. Now, statements can be uploaded. Now, when we talk about statements, just to quickly touch on statements that are being received from the vendor at the end of the period, and maybe the member of a team member has to go in and cross-reference that statement to the physical invoice that's in the filing cabinet or living on the local server. That team member has to go in and go line by line, cross-reference that line to the physical invoice that's living within that database, and make sure the invoice has been received, the totals align, and they've issued all the credits they owe you. So you can actually upload a statement the same way you upload an invoice via the methods that we discussed. Any of those 5 methods, you can also upload your invoice your statement the same exact way. But because PlateIQ is already processing all your invoices, once you upload a statement to the platform, PlateIQ is going to automatically cross-reference that statement to the physical invoice that's living and breathing within the platform. So here's a good example of that. So we have the statement to the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is all the work that PlateIQ has done to the statement. So you can see that PlateIQ has gone in, cross-referenced every single one of these lines to the physical invoice that's living and breathing within our system. So on the right-hand side is our discrepancy report. All the items in black have been cross-referenced. The invoices are there. The totals align. They've issued all the credits to owe you. There's no reason why we need to look up these invoices because they're good to go. However, it brings up all your discrepancies here to the top. So this invoice is either missing or the totals do not align here. This looks like this invoice is missing. So right from our statements module, you can actually select email vendor. It'll pre-populate an email with all the necessary information you need to send over to the vendor. Instead of having to write this down manually or prone to human error, it's ready to go. And then remember our client-specific or location-specific email address that we're going to set up for you guys on your behalf. Once I press send and the vendor realizes this invoice is missing, of course, wants to get paid, it's going to send it right back into your client or location-specific email address. And as it's being emailed back into your email ID, you'll notice that these red lines will be picked off one by one. This will go from red to black. This will be a completely reconciled statement with no work done on the team's end. Now that pretty much wraps up our statements module. Up next is our bill pay module. So from here, we'll move into our bill pay module. So we can notice that this user is utilizing our advanced AI approvals. Patrick is an admin, and based on the conditions that they have set up for Patrick has 16 invoices that need his approval. Whereas he's the admin, he can also oversee the approval of his entire organization. As these invoices are being approved here in our pending approval queue, they'll then be pushed into your bill pay module. And bill pay is made up of these six buckets here at the top. We have unpaid invoices, pending approval scheduled payments, pending export, payment calendar, and all payments. Starting with unpaid invoices, we have these 4 buckets. Overdue and upcoming are referencing the net terms of the contract terms that are in the invoice. It's being digitized, so it's also being pulled over within PlateIQ. But during the onboarding process, we also match those terms during implementation. Now, The key thing with our bill pay module is that we operate in what we call an unlimited model. So that means unlimited ACH transactions, unlimited checks cut on your behalf, unlimited virtual card transactions. We have no transaction fees, and we also don't hold funds in escrow or some type of floating account. So we're not a third party paying these bills on your behalf. We're simply a middleware solution where you can go in and you can handle this yourself. Think of PlateIQ as a one-to-one bank rec. Monies are pulled from the account once they've been deposited by the vendor. Now, as an administrator, I have for this specific demo account, I'm overseeing 156 different companies, different locations. These are all different separate bank accounts as well and are treated as such. But because I'm an admin, I'm able to oversee all of them. And let's just pop into one of my companies or one of my locations to create a check run. So these are all the approved invoices coming from the AP automation module. And now as a bill pay administrator, I'm just going to be selecting the invoices that I want to pay. And as we select them here, we can even link back to the original invoice as well, just to verify before adding into our check run. And then we also have in the top right corner a summary before we create our payment. Create our payment from here. Once we create our payment, those invoices move into our pending approval bucket. Now, the pending approval bucket will be specifically designed for the authorized signatory, the person who's actually signing the checks, the one authorizing payment of these bills. So they'll be pinged, letting them know that they have payments that are, or invoices, bills that are ready to be paid. And they can simply, anywhere within their connection, log in, using their credentials, go to the pending approval bucket and see all the bills that are ready for payment. And they can select a few here to be paid. You can also select all of them. But by pressing approve here, this is authorizing payment, right? So by pressing approve, we notice that there's an address here. An address that indicates that a check's going to be cut on the client's behalf, right? So by selecting approve, it's then going to trigger our partner office in Utah to then cut the check on your behalf as if you guys signed it, stamped it, and sent it yourself. That's a 5 to 7 day delivery. ACH is 3 to 5 days. Virtual card is also 3 to 5 days. Moving from pending approval, we have our scheduled payments. You can schedule as many payments as you like, partial payments, rent payments, utility bills, even early discounts. A lot of our customers who get early pay discounts will basically set up all those early pay discounts directly from here. They can basically set them up one time and forget it, right? So it's pre-programmed here, scheduled here, ready to go. You can have as many of them as you like. Moving from scheduled payments, we have our pending export queue. So first, coming from the AP automation module, they were open payments, and now we've paid them through our bill pay module. We want to export them back into your accounting software as paid bills. So from here, we'll be able to export these payments right back into your accounting software, and by exporting this, also exporting the payment information as well. So eliminating the manual data entry from that point as well. And then from here, we can also get visual eyes on all of our payments. So we want to click into this. We notice there's a check here. We can actually get visual eyes on our check. We can get the front of the check, the back of the check. You'll have the electronic signatures or signatures, the logos in the back here as well. Now for ACH payments, we actually provide the transaction ID. This is for any vendor who says, I never got paid via ACH, I'm not sure what's going on. You can actually reference this ACH transaction ID number. You can let the vendor know that they get paid, and you can provide them with the transaction ID number to confirm. Moving from pending export, we have our payment calendar. Our payment calendar is a visual way to look at the period, right? A lot of our customers are very visual. They like to see the cash flow and liquidity during the period, and the payment calendar is able to provide them that insight. So they can see exactly what's been scheduled for the week, the day, the month, and they can actually go in, depending on the permission level, they can actually amend some of these periods as well and just take one final review from more of a visual standpoint. Again, this is more of a visual tool to help our customers understand where they are with their cash position during the period. Moving from payment calendar is our all payments bucket. Now, very similar to on the invoice side of things, we have our digital archive, or digital filing cabinet. We're able to search those invoices by anything. Same thing with our bill pay module. You'll also get and receive the status of where that payment is, and you can access this information anywhere with internet connection.
Hey, James.
Yes.
Real quick, can I ask you, you mentioned something in the scheduled payment section. You mentioned something along the lines of a discount. What exactly did you mean by that?
So there's some customers, depending on when they pay their vendors, that the vendor actually offers what they call an early pay discount. An example of
Yeah.
this would be, paying the bill before the 10th of the month, as an
And
example.
you can set that in there that, because I mean, obviously, so say the invoice comes over for $100 and, they get a 10% discount. And, but the discount isn't shown on the invoice originally. So you enter in the invoice as $100. When you get to this section, can you set a vendor up to have a discount created for them so it knows to adjust it? Because obviously, so this is a situation that we're dealing with currently, and we're paying the engineer team and at PlateIQ to create a function like this. So I'm confused if this is already a function that's available, or how
Yeah,
exactly that works.
yeah. What I'll do is I'm taking a note of that here, and I'll be able to provide a more of a deeper dive
Okay.
on a call.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely, for sure. Okay. Okay, great. So what I'd like to do next, we'd like to cover our expense management tool. And for this module, I'd like to introduce my colleague and the Director of Strategic Sales, Shayna, who will be able to walk you guys through our expense management module.
Thanks, James. Hey, everyone. I think, Jimmy, you have to stop sharing so I could share.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
All right, great. So I'd like to introduce you all to the PlateIQ card. So this essentially works just like other P card programs, if you're familiar with a P card program through your bank or other provider. And how we differentiate is that all of our spend is pre-approved. So now you'll be able to provide all employees with corporate cards that have specific spending limits. All right. And the spend on these cards can be allocated for specific amounts for every employee, every department, and every business entity. There are absolutely no credit checks, no background checks, collateral, or additional requirements to be part of this PlateIQ card program. So not only can you issue cards to every employee, you can also create cards around controls for spend within particular merchants, and even GL categories. So I'd like to jump into the platform now and show you guys what that looks like. So this would be your main dashboard within the Spend Management PlateIQ card module. And very simply, this gives you a complete overview of all of your cards. And it is very easy to create PlateIQ cards right here. Just like what Jimmy showed you within our invoices module, you'll have different controls and user permissions. So everyone within the organization can have access to our PlateIQ cards. And then it could go to approval hierarchy. So everyone can have access, and then cards can be approved by their direct manager or any admins on the account. So first we have the option to create virtual cards. So this is great for expenses that you're doing online, which now most days a lot of business expenses are done online. So we have these 3 different card use cases. First, there's the single use, then there's the multi-use, and the recurring. So for the single use card, I would recommend this card option when you know the exact amount of what needs to be spent at a particular vendor for an online purchase. Because of course, once you use this card, the card can no longer be used. So this is great for when you have a one-time purchase and you want that extra layer of security with the single-use card. However, what I see most used by our current clients in the PlateIQ card program are the multi-use and recurring cards. So with the multi-use card, you have two options, both the reloadable and non-reloadable cards. So for example, I would recommend a non-reloadable card for when you know the exact amount and have approved multiple purchases, such as giving employees a holiday gift that you want them to use the card for up to a certain amount. So this is a nice way to provide a bonus to your employees. However, I would recommend the reloadable card for regular recurring expenses that might need to be. So for example, if you set a department budget for, like $1,000 for supplies, and however, there's one month where the printer breaks and you need to buy a new printer. So you need to increase the spend limit on that card. You can adjust the card for that spend limit, and those changes can be made and they can go and purchase that printer. And then lastly, my favorite option is the recurring option. So you have monthly and annually recurring cards. So this is great because we know that most of our subscription fees are usually for the same amount every month or annually, right? So these are great. You just generate these cards and you could leave these cards on file. You could even call them, like, for example, your Comcast card for those monthly Comcast bills. So I'm going to use this recurring monthly card as an example. All right, so I'm actually showing you how we're using our own product here at PlateIQ to keep our books in balance. So I'm going to select PlateIQ as the location. I'll select a particular expiration date. I could add any additional details right here. I could say the purpose is a subscription fee. I could set that spend limit to, let's say, $20. I'm going to assign the cardholder to be myself. You also have the option to set up user groups within your organization. So if you wanted the marketing department or, the GMs as another group, you could set that up that way. So everyone within that particular group would have access to this card. Lastly, the card controls. So Patrick, our accountant, for example, he likes all of our virtual cards classified as PlateIQ cards. So this is pulling from one bank account. However, it's all mapped as a PlateIQ card, just to keep everything a little bit nice and organized within our back system. And additionally, we have the ability to add advanced controls. So you can assign cards to have specific merchant categories and even specific merchants. You can also set max transaction limits and even transaction counts. So if you wanted to create a card for, let's say, Costco, you could say this merchant category is food, the merchant is Costco, the max transaction limit on this would be $500, and we would only like 5 transactions a month. You would have the ability to do that right here. And then you can go ahead and create this card. And essentially, once a card is created, if you're an admin of on the account or you have those permissions, the card will be automatically generated. So essentially within 20 seconds, you have a Visa credit card ready for use. If you were not an admin on the account and it had to go through an approval structure, it would appear here on the side. As you can see, I'm not an approver on this account. And the admin could simply go in, make any additional adjustments to the card, and then hit approve. And only once cards are approved and active will they appear here. What's even more interesting is you have the ability to make changes to this card even after the card has been created. Let's say there was an error in budgeting, so you need to change this card limit from $200 to $100. You would have the ability to do so right here. You can change the expiration date. You could even go back and assign additional categories if you'd like. You could even add additional users. And again, all these details are what's necessary to make an online virtual card payment. And for those instances where you do need to go to the store to make your purchases, we do have the multi-use and recurring cards available for physical cards. So again, you can have the same controls around a physical card. And of course, you can make these changes to the card even after they've been created. So you would populate similar details right here. This is an option. You can add the cardholder's date of birth as an extra measure of security if you'd like. You could even just have your company name printed on the card. It doesn't have to be an individual's name. And what's also really cool is that our cards have ATM capabilities. So instead of providing maybe tips or reimbursements on a virtual card or having to go through the hassle of payroll, you can simply select the ATM card and they can actually withdraw cash at an ATM from their physical cards. And we will ship all physical cards to you directly to your address of your choosing, and that would be within standard mail, 5 to 7 business days. And that pretty much does it for our PlateIQ cards themselves. I'll just pause for a second if you guys have any questions before I head into transactions.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you were talking about it doesn't require a background check or credit check. Can you say more about that? Because with other card companies that provide similar kinds of services, it's basically like a bank account, and so they have to make sure that the business entity actually exists and tie it to a person who's going to be financially responsible. Can you tell me about your application process?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is very simple in that there is no application process. We are linking this account to a bank account of your choosing. So I like to describe it as essentially like a debit card program with all the benefits and security of a credit card program. Because we do offer cash back as well with all of your spend with our PlateIQ cards.
That's great. So what's the pricing on this?
So pricing is based upon company and company spend. So it can be anywhere from $40 a month for a restaurant hospitality type group to $200 a month for like a larger group. It really comes down to spend and some other factors.
So generally between $40 and $200 a month is the out-of-pocket cost to have this service.
Yes, and then it is a fixed fee, and there is the cashback element that I mentioned. So we offer cashback starting at 0.5% up to 1%, and that is returned quarterly to all of our PlateIQ card users by ACH directly to their account.
Okay. I probably have a referral for you pretty much right now because a customer of mine has been stuck in the Divvy application process. And now that Divvy has been purchased by Bill.com, I have no idea when that's ever going through.
Yes, I'm familiar with Divvy and their product, and I would just like to jump in and say that their Divvy is a good product. We are very familiar with other expense management platforms on the market as well. I think we better in comparison in that we eliminate that kind of hassle in having to go through that credit application and process, right? Even with canceling cards, we know that especially with COVID and how times have changed, there's been a lot of turnover in recent years, right?
Yeah.
Even having to remove someone from an account is a hassle. You have to call your sales contact, you have to be on the phone, you have to do these emails, you have to make sure there's no fraud with usage of the card. There's all these things. So we have this simple feature here. So you can quickly put a card on hold if a card is reported missing by someone on the team. You can immediately close a card. There's no real process in terms of paperwork for adding people to giving them the ability to use PlateIQ cards.
And if I could chime in a little bit, since I currently use the product as well as PlateIQ's AP system, Ingrid, it's the reason we chose PlateIQ at its simplest form is the fact that everything is going to be consolidated. Having those invoices, synced back into QuickBooks and with, at the touch of our fingers, having that image available and ready without having to use multiple systems is absolutely incredible. And the simple fact that PlateIQ has been so easy to work with. Typically, correct me if I'm wrong, like usually, so how often do you usually pull from the bank to replenish the funds that have been spent on these virtual cards or any of the cards in expense management? Is it like every other day or?
So that's a great question. So since we're not extending like a line of credit, I essentially say we're doing like a 2-day float period. So you're floating this amount to preload the card essentially. However, the funds are not actually pulled from your account until the card is used.
And Ingrid, with that said, they have extended a different policy for us. So we technically pay at the end of the month. However, we have the availability to, so our normal process and with one of my clients is we pay the credit card every single Friday. So every single Friday we transfer X amount of funds that are loaded onto the cards and we issue that payment. And then at the end of each month, we get a notification that says, if this isn't paid, we're going to pull X amount out of your account. So we have a different situation that PlateIQ extended to us with a $10,000 max. It's not standard. It's not something that's typical, but we were a larger company. How we were vetted, I'm not exactly sure why we were easily approved, but it was something that they were willing to work with us with. And that's the thing that's been so incredible with PlateIQ is how easily it is to customize your experience with them. That's hands down the reason why we absolutely love PlateIQ.
That's great. I have one more question about the pricing. So the customer that I'm looking at referring to you at this point is a very seasonal business.
Okay.
Actually, it's a summer camp. And so occasionally counselors will need to purchase supplies on behalf of the camp, and PlateIQ cards could be really helpful for that. But that only happens 3 months out of the year. Is
Right.
it possible to suspend an account during the off season so that there's no charges when there's not going to be anybody using any cards?
So that's a great question. We don't offer suspension of accounts. We could just do an upfront fee for the year, and then we could work with you on pricing
Okay,
since it is a seasonal business. Yeah.
great. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And thank you guys. I'm happy to hear all that feedback. And it's true, we can customize this for you as well. If you would like to, have an upfront amount funded for your account, we could happily work with you on that and pre-fund your account to have X amount, whether it be $10,000 or larger or smaller amount. Any other questions before I move on to transactions?
I don't have any, no.
No, go for it.
Okay, great. So just like James mentioned, within the invoices module, the transaction and receipts portion is going to have some similarity, which makes it even more user-friendly, right? So here you can search this tab. You could search by vendor. You can search by card number, whatever you like. So if I search by Amazon, all my Amazon purchases within the company are coming up here. We even have these filters as well, where you could search by date range, GL card, location. So if I continue here and I just wanted to search by a card number, so I could quickly see when I enter in the last 4 digits here, this card is obviously belonging to Jill at her company, and these are some of her transactions, right? And then when I click into a transaction, I have additional detail. So I can see, for example, that this is not a transaction that has been mapped and coded yet. So what will end up happening is when a new transaction comes into the system, similarly like a new item within the invoices module, it's going to be a one-time process. So you're going to map and code this one time, and then the system's AI is going to remember that and repeat that pattern going forward. And additionally, you could always add splits, whether that be by GL, location, or department and amount. So you have that ability as well within the receipts part of the module. And speaking of receipts, we have multiple ways, just like invoices, to getting receipts into the system. Of course, you can bulk scan all your receipts and they can be uploaded that way. A couple of my preferred methods, I would say, with most people trying to go paperless, most businesses, kind of want to avoid that as an expense. So at checkout, they're asking, would you like that printed or emailed, right? So now you could just provide your receipt email for this module, and then the receipts will get uploaded that way. And then my favorite version is our mobile app. So our mobile app is available in iOS. So essentially, as soon as a card has been swiped, you're going to get a notification to your iPhone prompting you to take a picture of the receipt and upload it to the platform.
Quick
So
question.
those, sure.
Do you anticipate your mobile app being available for Android anytime soon?
I'm not entirely sure of the timeline. I would not say soon, if I'm being completely honest. It has come up. So I brought this up in a recent meeting, and most of our Android users actually use just their web browser, and it works really well.
Oh,
So
okay.
they haven't had any issues.
Great. So you don't have a mobile app for Android, but using the Chrome browser on the phone to access this works fine to upload receipts.
Yes, it has the same functionality essentially. So
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. And then another thing that I like here is the ability to edit the vendor name. Sometimes when you swipe a card, you'll have the vendor name, and then I'll say like New York, New York, or some physical address will appear here as well. So you have the ability to edit this. So the next time you make a purchase with that vendor or that store, the system is going to remember that as well. And just like within the invoices part of the module, you have the ability to communicate with members of your team. So if I wanted to ask Aaron where the receipt is, I could simply ask him right here. And when I save, he'll get a notification prompting him to respond.
I have another question for you.
Sure.
Does your product work in multi-currency at all?
Unfortunately not. It is completely US based.
Okay.
And completely, with just US banks.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And then speaking of the receipts as well, we could create rules around receipt upload. So let's say for audit purposes, you wanted all receipts over $25 to be uploaded to the system. We can create a rule for that. So this transaction would not be marked as completed until that receipt has been uploaded, and it will remain in the employee's work queue. And lastly, if you were to use a PlateIQ card to pay an invoice that has been uploaded to the invoice as part of the system, that invoice detail would appear here. And that pretty much does it for transactions. So after this is all done, everything has been mapped and coded, all my necessary receipts have been uploaded, I can bulk select just like within invoices, and I can export to my accounting system. We currently have direct integrations for QuickBooks Online, Desktop, Intact, NetSuite. All other integrations we do have available with the CSV. And we can even work on custom integrations for you. Any questions on transactions before I move over to reimbursements?
I don't have any.
Nope, go for it. Thank you.
Of course. So on the reimbursement end, this is super simple. So I think you brought up Expensify maybe or another platform. So I think Expensify is the main platform in this space that comes up in terms of reimbursement. However, it does get complicated in that they still rely on you to do a lot of the work, in that they leave a lot of the mapping and coding unanswered, right? So we're going to make this very easy. This does not have to, this can be completely independent of payroll, and I'll show you how. So you can select an expiration date. You can enter an amount. I could say I had to go to the store real quick. for some supplies. I can add any additional detail here. And then I'm going to search my computer to upload an image. And then once that image is uploaded, I'm going to submit this receipt for reimbursement. So it looks like I have the ability to send this reimbursement because it's been approved. So you have two ways to distribute reimbursements. You can actually create a virtual card for your employees for that amount. Very simply, they'll put that $50 on a virtual card for that employee who submitted that reimbursement. Or you can actually just do a direct ACH to their bank account. And it is that simple. A lot of our current clients using this like the virtual card option because, again, they do get cash back with all the PlateIQ card spend. However, if it's not the employee's preferred method and you want to honor what their preference is, there is the ACH option for their account. And there are no transaction fees associated with this ACH either. All right. So that is the personal reimbursement. And then we do also support mileage reimbursement. So if someone had a business trip, we could select the home address. Let's say they had to go to a trade show at the Javits Center. All right, we're going to select the date. We can say trade show, and then we have already entered in a mileage. You could set the mileage within the approvals, and then you just hit next. And again, you have the option for both the virtual card or the ACH to their bank account method of reimbursement.
I have a quick question on that.
Sure.
As far as the mileage rate goes, is that something you guys update every year?
So you can actually fix the mileage rate yourselves.
Oh, okay.
So you have the option to submit the mileage rate. I believe it might change, right? So you have the ability to do that as well.
It lowered somehow this year, but yeah.
I have a question also.
Sure.
So for both the reimbursements and the mileage, but also, the invoices and receipts, all of it, does your integration with QBO support class tracking? Are you familiar with that feature?
Yes, I believe Jimmy is too, and we do support classes, if I'm not mistaken, correct, Jimmy?
Yes. Yeah, we support class as well, both on the invoice side too.
Mm-hmm.
So for this mileage that we're looking at right now, I see date amount merchant purchase. How would we get the class field in there?
That's a great question. It's also a feature we are adding where you would be able to add the coding and the class field.
Okay, because if you have class tracking, I've got another customer for you.
Everything other than this reimbursement section, Ingrid, is everything backs up. Everything's coded as a class for us, so I know it does work. We just have never used this reimbursement feature. I actually don't recall being familiar with the reimbursement feature. Is it new?
It is newer. I would say it came out within the last month.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's completely new to me as well. But solid point bringing that up because yeah, that's definitely going to be a game changer for us.
Yeah.
We use it, but yeah, we'd need the class tracking because it's going to upload without it. I mean, I'd catch it, but yeah, that's cool.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And lastly, what I was showing over here quickly was the policies that you could create. So I mentioned the reimbursement one, you could set your mileage over here. You could also just create different policies. So for mileage, this is an example policy that we set up here. Since we were just kind of testing it on our internal account, we were really not doing much reimbursement because everyone within the organization just goes in and makes a PlateIQ card. But yeah, you can set different conditions for reimbursements. You could have different reviewers. You could just assign it to different user groups. We have a policy for every part of the system. So you can create different card approval policies you could create them for specific locations, for specific people. You could have different conditions, whether it be for users or spend limits, as you could see here, and you could have different approvers within the account just for cards, and different approvers even or reviewers for transactions. And the system is pretty intuitive. A lot of this functionality is similar to the invoices, so it should be very comfortable and pretty straightforward for most people to use right off the bat. And that pretty much does it for our PlateIQ cards program. Any additional questions here?
Nope.
I think you've covered it pretty well. Thank you so much. This is really great. And my mind is bursting with ideas. Like I said, I've got a couple of clients that I am at this point looking forward to sharing this video with. So I'm super glad we're recording this. And oh, hold on. There we go. Sorry, my Zoom phone started ringing while I'm in a Zoom meeting. You'd think it would know I'm busy.
Funny.
But yeah, I'm really excited because yeah, so long as you've got class tracking on those reimbursement pieces. I've got a client that runs a tour company out of New York, and he's got multi-locations in, you know, Boston and other places, and he's been doing his reimbursements to his guides via his payroll and Gusto. And I'm like, no, that's got to shift. We need to find you a better solution because that's just not going to work.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful. A wonderful option too, is because you put it on the employees, you know, because there's, you know, the office is usually doing so much. So it's nice that you won't forget that when you're putting it on them. If they want to get paid, it, you know, it's their responsibility to upload all of the documentation for it. So you're, you know, your admin staff's not being paid to constantly ask, where's the documentation, and this and that.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So I think if we don't have any other questions for Shayna and James, then Sade and I can kind of just sort of discuss and wrap up the meeting. We've actually been on for a little longer than an hour. It's 1:45 now, so we've only got about 15 minutes left. Any final thoughts from you, Shayna or James?
If anyone has any other questions, feel free to reach out to either Shayna or myself directly. Can put my email address in the chat. Just if you have any other questions, to feel free to reach out, and want to be a resource for you guys going forward. So please lean on us with any other questions. Yeah, Shayna.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other great thing, as I'm sure you may have experienced, is the quick turnaround time for setup and getting started. Even I do want to mention that the PlateIQ card program can be used in conjunction with the invoices, or it can be used independently. So if you had someone who just wanted to get in because they needed to start creating cards immediately, and then we could get them involved on the invoice piece as well, that's like another way to think about that. So if you do have recommendations, of course, for people to use, Jimmy and I are happy to speak with them, to do this demo for them, and see if they have any additional questions on moving forward.
Fantastic. So, I mean, the software is very modular. So there's different pieces that one company might use one area of it and not another area of it. Are there pricing points for each of the different modules, or is it one big package?
Sure. So on the AP automation side of things, we've broken the packages down into a combination of about 3 to 4 different packages, ranging from like your bare bones, really simplistic type of just don't want to see paper anymore. We want to just kind of have it really basic system, and then all the way to what we've covered today, which is a combination of our Pro and Pro Plus versions, where Pro Plus has a little bit more on top. We have some analytics that comes on the side, because all these invoices are being transcribed in digital text. We have some really cool insights modules that provide some cool reports just based on that information.
Yeah.
So just really depends on what exactly the user needs, right? We like to do is be very, as Sade had mentioned, we like to be very nimble and we are able to customize a lot of the service level based on what the actual end user, the organization requires.
Okay, so you don't have set prices, you kind of a la carte price everything for each customer?
James, I thought you originally did have a la carte, was based off invoices, invoice volume. But I think it also really had to do, like, another company that I am going to be bringing on has extremely low invoice volume, but the features that we want, I think. So, I mean, he came back, yeah, with pretty much an a la carte, a custom.
Yeah, exactly. So there's several different service levels, but in order to get pricing, we still based everything off of invoices because the AP automation side is a invoice processing platform. So in order to get better pricing or just to understand where to even what the starting point would be for something like that, all we would need to know from the operator's perspective is, hey, how many invoices are you guys processing a month? And then we can customize it from there.
And to be really, really clear, when you're saying invoices, what you mean are vendor bills. Because in accounting language, invoices are what we send to our customers and bills are what we receive from our vendors. It's like immigration and emigration.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. It's any type of a payable, anything
Okay.
that's
Great. Yeah. And in both of the cases that I'm thinking of referring to you, it's for the other tools. They get very few bills that they would need your tools to process for them.
Got it. Makes sense. Perfect. Okay.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Thank you both so much for joining us today. And Sharday and I will kind of continue the meeting. And yeah, you're welcome to hop on out.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. It's just you and me now.
Yeah. So pricing. So when I had my first demo with him, he went over pricing, but I'd say for like oil stuff, I think we're paying around $1,000, $1,050. That's just for AP.
So we are still recording. So I would recommend not mentioning particular.
Sorry, I had no idea. I thought you, since they got off that, yeah. So
yeah, no, I have to stop the recording and it'll say that I've stopped.
Okay. Well, if there's any way you can bleep that out, please do.
Not without video editing. That I would rather not jump through the hoops to do. But if you would like to do some video editing, you're welcome to do that. So I'll stop the recording now.
Yeah, so I'd say for just the AP side, it's running around $1,050, but that's with